Jake Morrison walked slowly around the base fence in the cold mountain air. His boots made soft sounds on the rocky ground as he checked each section of the wire barrier. The night was quiet except for the wind blowing through the Afghan hills. He had done this patrol hundreds of times in the past 2 years, but something felt different tonight. The 28-year-old soldier stopped and looked up at the stars. They seemed brighter than usual in the clear sky. Jake had grown up on a farm in Kansas and knew the night sky well, but tonight the stars looked strange. A green light appeared between the mountains and grew bigger as he watched. Jake reached for his radio to call the base, but his hand stopped moving. The green light was not a flare or helicopter. It was something he had never seen before. The light came closer, and he could see it was attached to something large and dark. The object made no sound as it moved through the air toward him. Fear ran through his body, but his training kicked in. Jake tried to move toward the base buildings, but his legs would not work. A beam of light shot down from the object and hit him. His whole body went numb, and he fell to his knees. The last thing he remembered was the ground rushing up to meet his face. When Jake woke up, everything was white and bright. He was lying on a hard surface that felt like metal. His head hurt, and his mouth was dry. He tried to sit up, but invisible chains held him down. Only his head could move from side to side. The room was small and had no windows. Strange symbols glowed on the walls. Jake could hear a low humming sound coming from somewhere nearby. He tested the bonds holding him, but they were stronger than any rope or chain he knew. A door opened in the wall where Jake had not seen one before. A tall figure walked into the room. Jake's eyes went wide as he looked at his captor. The being was 7 feet tall with gray skin and a large head. Its eyes were black and twice the size of human eyes. It had no hair, and its mouth was just a small slit. The creature wore a silver outfit that covered its thin body. It walked on 2 legs like a human, but moved in a strange way. When it spoke, Jake heard the words in his head instead of through his ears. "You are awake, human soldier," the voice said inside his mind. "I am Commander Zix of the Kepler Collective. Do not try to escape. The energy field holding you cannot be broken by your primitive strength." Jake tried to speak, but only made a croaking sound. His throat was too dry. The alien touched something on its wrist, and water appeared in a tube near Jake's mouth. He drank it quickly. "Why did you take me?" Jake asked when he could speak again. Commander Zix walked around the table where Jake lay. Its black eyes studied him like he was an interesting bug. "Your species has been discovered by our scouts. We collect specimens from new worlds to study and sell. Military personnel like you provide the best entertainment value." "Entertainment?" Jake said. The word made him angry, but he kept his voice calm. "Yes, your kind shows amusing resistance patterns when captured. Some buyers use humans as gladiators. Others keep them as exotic pets. A few use them for manual labor on mining worlds." Jake felt sick, but forced himself to think clearly. He was a prisoner of war, now even if the enemy was not human. His training had taught him to observe everything and look for ways to escape. He started studying the room and his captor. The alien continued talking. "We have been taking humans for many years. Your governments know nothing about it. We choose people who will not be missed or whose disappearance can be explained easily. But I'm a soldier. People will look for me." Commander Zix made a sound that might have been laughter. "Your commanders think you deserted your post. We left evidence to support this conclusion. No one will search for you." Jake felt anger building inside him, but kept his face blank. Let the alien think he was defeated. That would be its first mistake. "You will be processed and prepared for sale at Proxima Station," the alien said. "The journey will take several rotations. You will be fed and kept healthy to maintain your value. The creature left the room and Jake was alone again. He tested the energy field holding him and found it was like being trapped in invisible cement. But Jake was not worried yet. Every prison had weaknesses and every guard made mistakes. He just had to be patient and watch for his chance. His father had taught him that a smart farmer always studies his land before planting. Jake would study this ship and these aliens before making his move. They thought they had caught a helpless human, but they had actually captured a United States Army Ranger. That was going to be their biggest mistake. Commander Zix returned the next day with 2 other aliens who looked exactly like him. They carried strange devices that beeped and flashed as they pointed them at Jake. The energy field holding him disappeared, but before he could move, thick metal bands locked around his wrists and ankles. "Stand up, human," Commander Zix ordered. Jake got to his feet slowly. His legs were weak from lying down so long, but he tried not to show it. The metal bands were connected by short chains that let him walk but not run. One of the other aliens held a device that Jake guessed was some kind of weapon. They led him through corridors that curved in ways that hurt his eyes to look at. The walls were covered with more glowing symbols, and the air smelled like electricity. Jake counted his steps and tried to remember each turn. A good soldier always mapped his prison. The aliens brought him to a larger room filled with machines he did not recognize. Commander Zix pointed to a platform in the center of the room. Jake stepped onto it, and lights immediately began scanning his body from head to toe. "Interesting," Commander Zix said, as he watched displays that showed Jake's internal organs. "Your muscle density is higher than our records indicated. Your bone structure shows signs of frequent stress and repair. You have been damaged many times and healed." Jake said nothing. Let them think he was simple. More tests followed. They made him lift weights that got heavier each time. They tested how fast he could run on a moving melt. They measured how well he could see and hear. Jake performed just well enough to seem normal, but held back his real abilities. "Your endurance levels are remarkable," one of the other aliens said. "Most species fatigue much faster. Humans evolved on a planet with high gravity and dangerous predators," Commander Zix explained to his assistants. "They developed persistence, hunting techniques. They can pursue prey for days without stopping." Jake filed away this information. The aliens knew some things about humans, but not everything. That was good. During a break between tests, Commander Zix showed Jake a viewing window. Outside was the blackness of space, filled with more stars than Jake had ever seen. A blue and white planet hung in the distance. "That is your world," the alien said. "You will never see it again." Jake looked at Earth and felt homesickness hit him like a punch to the gut. But he pushed the feeling down and focused on what he could learn. The ship was obviously very far from home, but space travel was possible. If these aliens could do it, then maybe humans could too. The tests continued for several days. Jake began to understand the pattern. The aliens were not just studying him, but comparing him to other species they had captured before. They seemed especially interested in what they called human problem-solving abilities. They put him in rooms with puzzles to solve and obstacles to overcome. Jake deliberately failed some of the easier ones, while solving harder problems that required physical strength. He wanted them to think he was strong, but not smart. During one test, he pretended to have trouble with a simple lock, while secretly studying how alien technology worked. Their devices seemed to respond to touch and thought, rather than just buttons. Everything was connected to a central computer system. The human shows limited cognitive function, but superior physical adaptation. He heard one alien tell Commander Zix. "It solves problems through trial and error rather than logical analysis." Perfect. Let them underestimate his intelligence. Between testing sessions, they put Jake in a holding cell. It was larger than the first room, and had a small window. Through it he could see other parts of the ship. He counted 8 aliens total, working in the areas he could observe. The ship seemed to run itself, mostly with the aliens just monitoring systems. On the 4th day, Commander Zix brought him to a different section of the ship. Here Jake saw something that made his heart race. Other humans were being held in cells like his. He counted 12 people of different ages and backgrounds. A woman in a lab coat looked up as they passed her cell. She had Asian features and looked to be in her 30s. In another cell, a Hispanic man with grease stains on his clothes was working on something Jake could not see. An elderly African-American woman sat quietly reading from a device in a 3rd cell. Jake made eye contact with each human as he passed. He used basic hand signals that any military person would recognize. Enemy present. Stay alert. Organize later. The woman in the lab coat nodded slightly. The man with grease stains looked up and tapped his chest once. The elderly woman closed her eyes and opened them twice. They understood. Commander Zix noticed nothing. Your fellow humans, he said. They have been much less entertaining than you. Most species lose hope quickly when captured. Humans seem to maintain optimism longer than most. Where did you get them? Jake asked. Various locations on your planet over the past several rotations. The female scientist was taken from a research facility. The mechanical worker was collected from a transportation center. We gather specimens from different human occupations to provide variety for buyers. Jake felt anger building again, but kept his face calm. These aliens talked about people like they were cattle. That was going to be another mistake they would regret. When do we reach this station where you plan to sell us? Jake asked. Soon. Proxima Station is the largest slave market in this sector. Humans are considered exotic merchandise. You will bring good prices. Commander Zix seemed pleased by this thought. Jake nodded like he understood and accepted his fate. Inside his mind, he was already planning. 12 humans with different skills and knowledge. 8 aliens who thought they were dealing with dumb animals. A ship full of advanced technology. That could be turned against its makers. The aliens had made many mistakes, but their biggest one was assuming that humans would stay helpless once they understood their situation. Jake had news for them. Humans did not stay helpless for long. Jake learned the ship's schedule over the next few days. The aliens worked in shifts with only 2 awake at any time while the others rested. They fed the human prisoners once every 12 hours with a gray paste that tasted like cardboard, but provided nutrition. During feeding time, Jake was able to make contact with the other humans. The woman in the lab coat was Dr. Lisa Park, a biochemist from Seattle. The man with grease stains was Tony Rodriguez, who fixed cars and trucks in Detroit. The elderly woman was Helen Wright, a retired teacher from Atlanta. Jake used simple military hand signals to communicate when the aliens were watching. When they were alone, he whispered quickly to share information. Each human had different knowledge that could help them escape. Dr. Park had been studying the food they were given and the cleaning solutions the aliens used. She told Jake that alien technology was based on chemical reactions she could disrupt. Tony had been watching the maintenance routines and figured out how several ship systems worked. Helen had been observing the aliens themselves and noticed patterns in their behavior. They are creatures of habit, Helen whispered to Jake during one meal period. They follow exact routines and become confused when anything unexpected happens. They have lived safe lives and do not think like soldiers. Jake nodded. This matched what he had observed. The aliens were advanced, but soft. They relied completely on their technology and had never faced real resistance. Over several days, Jake learned about all 12 human prisoners. There was Carlos the construction worker who understood building and demolition. Betty the nurse who knew field medicine. Sam the computer programmer, who was studying alien data systems. Each person had skills that could be useful. Jake began planning what he called Operation Homecoming. The plan had several stages that would need perfect timing. First, they had to disable the ship's security systems. Then they had to take control of critical areas. Finally, they had to learn to fly the ship back to Earth. The biggest challenge was communication. Jake could not risk the aliens discovering the resistance network. He taught the others basic hand signals and set up a system using meal times and cleaning periods to pass messages. Dr. Park made the first breakthrough. She figured out how to create a chemical mixture from cleaning supplies that would short circuit alien electronics. The mixture had to be applied directly to control panels, but it would cause temporary blackouts in ship systems. Tony discovered that the aliens had backup controls in an engineering section near the bottom of the ship. If they could reach that area, they could override the main computer and take control of life support, artificial gravity, and weapon systems. Jake studied the aliens themselves during his daily tests with Commander Zix. The creatures were physically weak compared to humans. Their bones were thin and their muscles were underdeveloped. They had never evolved to fight hand-to-hand because their technology had always protected them. More importantly, the aliens thought in predictable patterns. They followed procedures exactly and never improvised. When Jake deliberately caused small problems during tests, Commander Zix always responded the same way. Check the equipment first, then check the computer, then call for assistance. Your species shows interesting adaptation capabilities, Commander Zix told Jake during one session. But you lack the intellectual capacity for complex planning. This makes you suitable for simple labor, but not dangerous to your owners. Jake nodded and tried to look confused by big words. Let the alien think humans were too stupid to plan anything complicated. The key moment came when Commander Zix announced they would reach Proxima Station in 3 days. Jake knew they were running out of time. He sent word through the resistance network that Operation Homecoming would begin during the next feeding period. Dr. Park had prepared small containers of her chemical mixture. Tony had mapped the route to the engineering section. Helen had identified which aliens would be on duty. Sam had figured out basic alien computer commands. Everyone knew their role. Jake felt nervous energy building inside him. This was like the minutes before a combat mission, when everything depended on training and teamwork. But unlike military operations, this mission had no backup plan. If they failed, they would be sold as slaves, and Earth would never know what happened to them. Feeding period began normally. 2 aliens brought the gray paste to each cell and watched as the humans ate. Jake gave the signal by scratching his left ear. Dr. Park dropped her chemical mixture onto the door control of her cell. Sparks flew and alarms began sounding throughout the ship. The 2 alien guards rushed toward Dr. Park's cell to investigate. At that moment, Jake kicked the wall of his cell where Tony had told him a power cable ran behind the metal plates. The impact damaged the cable and Jake's cell door swung open. The aliens turned toward him, but Tony had already used his chemical mixture to open his own cell. Within seconds, 6 humans were free and moving through the corridor. The aliens reached for their weapons, but Helen threw cleaning fluid in their eyes while Carlos tackled one of them from behind. The creatures were strong, but had never been in a real fight. Human combat training and desperation quickly overwhelmed alien technology. Jake grabbed one of the weapons and pointed it at Commander Zix as the alien commander rushed into the corridor. The device was heavier than a rifle, but felt familiar enough to use. Call off your security systems, Jake ordered. Commander Zix's black eyes went wide with surprise. This is impossible. Humans cannot coordinate complex actions. Our behavioral studies prove this. Your studies were wrong, Jake said. Now shut down your alarms before I show you what humans do to slavers. The alien commander seemed frozen by the situation. Nothing in his experience had prepared him for armed human resistance. Jake could see the creature's mind struggling to process what was happening. That moment of alien confusion was exactly what Jake had counted on. While Commander Zix stood there trying to understand how his prisoners had escaped the other humans. "We're already moving to the next phase of the operation," Tony and Sam headed for the engineering section, while Dr. Park and Helen secured the remaining prisoners. Carlos and Betty took control of the corridor and its access points. Jake kept his weapon trained on Commander Zix and waited for the next phase to begin. The aliens had spent years studying humans, but they had never understood the most important thing about his species. Humans were at their most dangerous when they had nothing left to lose. Tony and Sam reached the engineering section, while alarms continued blaring throughout the ship. The door was sealed, but Tony used Dr. Park's chemical mixture to short out the lock mechanism. Inside they found a room filled with control panels. Covered in alien symbols, Sam sat down at what looked like the main computer terminal. His knowledge of programming helped him understand the basic logic, even though the symbols were strange. Tony began studying the mechanical systems that controlled the ship's engines and life support. "I can see the ship's layout on this screen." Sam called out, "There are 6 aliens still moving toward our position. 2 are already unconscious in the corridor where we started." Jake heard this report through the communication device they had taken from one of the guards. He pressed the weapon harder against Commander Zix's neck. "Tell your crew to stand down, or I start shooting." Commander Zix seemed to be in shock. This cannot be happening. Humans are not capable of organized resistance. Our data shows you are. Individualistic and cannot work together under stress. "Your data is garbage," Jake replied. "Now make the call." The alien commander activated a device on his wrist and spoke in his own language. Jake could not understand the words, but he recognized the tone of defeat. Whatever Commander Zix told his crew, it made them stop moving toward the human positions. Helen and Dr. Park had freed all 12 human prisoners and armed them with weapons taken from storage lockers. Betty was treating 2 humans who had been injured during medical experiments. Carlos had barricaded the main corridor to prevent alien reinforcements from reaching the command areas. "Engineering section secured," Tony reported. "I can control engines, weapons, and life support from here. Sam has access to navigation and communications." Jake felt a moment of satisfaction. The first phase had worked perfectly. Now came the hard part. "Can you plot a course back to Earth?" Jake asked through the communicator. "Working on it," Sam replied. "The navigation system is complex, but I think I can figure it out. It might take some time, though." Jake turned back to Commander Zix. "How many other ships does your collective have in this area?" The alien said nothing for several seconds. Jake moved the weapon closer to its head. "I asked you a question." 3 vessels are within communication range," Commander Zix finally answered. "They will respond if we do not report our status within 6 rotations." Jake did quick math in his head. 6 rotations probably meant 6 of whatever time periods these aliens used. Maybe 6 hours in Earth time. They needed to move fast. "Sam, can you access the ship's communication system?" Jake called out. "Yes, I can see the channels they use to contact other vessels." "Good. Record everything you can about their fleet positions and capabilities." "Tony, how are the weapon systems?" "Complex, but manageable," Tony answered. "These aliens have some serious firepower. Energy weapons that could probably destroy a city if they wanted to." Jake thought about this information. The aliens had advanced weapons, but they had never expected to use them against escaped prisoners. That gave the humans an advantage because they were willing to use maximum force while the aliens were still trying to understand what was happening. Dr. Park's voice came through the communicator. Jake, I found something important in their computer files. These aliens have been taking humans for over 20 years. Thousands of people have been sold into slavery across multiple star systems. Anger burned through Jake's chest. 20 years of kidnapping and slavery, while Earth's governments remained ignorant. Someone had to pay for that, and he was looking at the alien who ran this operation. Change of plans, Jake announced. We're not just going home. We're going to shut down this entire slave trade. Commander Zix made a sound of surprise. Impossible. You cannot operate alien technology well enough to fight trained crews. You will be recaptured or destroyed. We'll see about that, Jake replied. Sam, can you identify the locations of those other ships? 2 are at something called Freight Station 7, about 6 hours travel from here. The 3rd is heading toward a place marked as Collection Point Delta. Jake understood immediately. Collection Point Delta was probably another location where they took humans from Earth. If they could stop that ship, they might save more people from slavery. Tony, how long to get this ship to maximum combat readiness? Give me 2 hours to understand all the systems, Tony answered. But Jake, most of us don't know anything about space combat. This isn't like fighting on Earth. Same principles apply, Jake said. Superior firepower, tactical surprise, and willingness to use maximum force. The aliens have better technology, but we have better training and motivation. Helen's voice joined the conversation. Jake, I've been watching these aliens for days. They panic when things don't go according to plan. If we hit them hard and fast, they won't be able to respond effectively. Jake nodded, even though Helen could not see him. Exactly. Betty, how are our people holding up? Everyone is scared, but determined, Betty reported. The 2 injured prisoners are stable. Dr. Park's chemical treatments worked better than expected. We have more fighters available than I thought. Jake looked at Commander Zix, who was listening to everything with growing horror. The alien was beginning to understand that the humans were not planning to simply escape. They intended to fight back against the entire Kepler collective operation. This is madness, Commander Zix said. You cannot win against our entire fleet. Your primitive minds cannot comprehend the forces you are challenging. Jake smiled for the first time since being captured. Commander, you made one critical mistake. When you decided to take human prisoners, you assumed we would accept being victims. That was wrong. The alien stared at him with those large black eyes. Jake could see confusion and fear growing in the creature's expression. Everything it thought it knew about humans was proving to be incorrect. Your species conquered the galaxy by being smarter and more advanced than everyone else, Jake continued. But you never learned how to fight against someone who refuses to surrender. That's going to be your downfall. Sam's voice crackled through the communicator. Jake, I'm reading massive energy signatures approaching our position. Multiple ships incoming fast. Jake felt his pulse quicken. The real fight was about to begin, and everything would depend on whether humans could learn alien technology faster than aliens could adapt human tactics. 3 alien ships appeared on the main screen as Sam brought up the ship's sensor display. Jake studied the tactical situation while keeping his weapon pointed at Commander Zix. The approaching vessels were larger than their captured ship and showed multiple weapon ports along their hulls. How long until they reach us? Jake asked. 20 minutes at current speed, Sam replied from the engineering section. They're trying to communicate with this ship. Jake looked at Commander Zix. You're going to answer them and tell them everything is normal. If you try to warn them, I'll shoot you and we'll fight our way out anyway. The alien commander activated his wrist device. Jake listened as Commander Zix spoke in his own language. The tone sounded normal, but Jake had no way to know what was actually being said. After the communication ended, Commander Zix looked at Jake with something that might have been respect. I told them we experienced minor technical difficulties, but everything is under control. They will maintain distance until we dock at Proxima Station. Good. That buys us time to prepare. Jake activated his communicator. Tony, status on weapon systems. I've figured out the basic controls, Tony answered. These energy weapons are incredibly powerful, but they have complex targeting systems. I'm not sure how accurate we'll be in a real fight. Accuracy won't matter if we get close enough, Jake said. What about the other ship functions? Dr. Park's voice joined the conversation. I've been studying their computer files about human prisoners. Jake, there are 17 more humans on those 3 ships. We can't just destroy them. Jake felt the weight of command settling on his shoulders. As a soldier, he knew the tactical value of striking fast and hard. But as a human being, he could not abandon other prisoners to save himself. New plan, Jake announced. We board those ships and take them intact. Tony, can you disable their engines? Without destroying them. Maybe, if I can get close enough to use their own tractor beam systems against them. It's risky, though. Helen's voice came through clearly. Jake, I've been watching how these aliens think. They follow procedures and can't adapt quickly to new situations. If we do something completely unexpected, they won't know how to respond. Jake thought about this. Every military operation depended on doing what the enemy did not expect. What do you have in mind, Helen? Instead of trying to fight or run away, we surrender to them. Let them bring us aboard their ships. Then we take them from the inside. Commander Zix made a sound of disbelief. You would willingly put yourself back into captivity. This proves humans are indeed primitive in their thinking. Or it proves we're willing to take risks you can't imagine, Jake replied. Sam, can you make it look like our ship is disabled? I can shut down non-essential systems and create fake damage reports, Sam said. It would be convincing from the outside. Jake made his decision. Do it. Everyone get ready for close quarters combat. We're going to take all 3 ships and free every human prisoner they have. The plan required precise timing. Sam created false system failures that made their ship appear to be losing power. Tony prepared the docking systems to allow the alien ships to come alongside. Dr. Park and Helen organized the human prisoners into combat teams. When the largest alien ship moved close, Sam activated the docking clamps. Jake and 6 other humans hid near the airlock, while the remaining prisoners pretended to be unconscious in their cells. Alien crew members boarded their ship to investigate the system failures. They expected to find Commander Zix in control and human prisoners secured in the holding area. Instead, they found humans with alien weapons waiting for them. The fight was brief and decisive. The alien boarding party had never experienced combat against determined opponents. Human military training and desperation overwhelmed. Alien surprise and confusion within minutes. Jake led the assault team through the airlock onto the alien ship. They moved through corridors filled with more advanced technology than he had seen before. The ship was larger and more complex, but the basic layout was similar to their captured vessel. 12 aliens on this ship, according to their computer, Carlos reported as he accessed a control panel. 6 are in the engine room, 4 on the bridge, 2 in what looks like a medical bay. Jake split his team into 3 groups. Betty and Helen take the medical bay and look for human prisoners. Carlos and Sam secure the engine room. Tony and I will take the bridge. Each group moved quickly through the ship, using tactics Jake had learned in urban combat training. The aliens they encountered were completely unprepared for armed resistance inside their own vessel. Most surrendered immediately when faced with human weapons. The bridge was the last area to fall. Jake found 4 aliens working at control stations, trying to understand why their systems were being accessed from multiple locations. When he and Tony burst through the door, The aliens froze in panic. "Secure their weapons and communication devices," Jake ordered. Tony moved quickly to disarm the bridge crew, while Jake studied the tactical displays. The screen showed that 2 more alien ships were approaching fast. These vessels were even larger than the one they had just captured. Jake realized the Kepler Collective was sending significant force to deal with what they probably thought was a minor technical problem. "Sam, status on the other ships," Jake called through his communicator. "We've taken the second vessel. Found 8 human prisoners, including 2 children. The third ship is fighting back, but we have them surrounded." Jake felt satisfaction mixed, with growing concern. They were winning individual battles, but the war was getting bigger. Every ship they captured would bring more alien attention. Betty's voice crackled through the communication system. "Medical bay secured. We found horrible things here, Jake. These aliens have been experimenting on humans for years. There are records of thousands of people." Anger burned through Jake's chest as he looked at the alien bridge crew. These creatures had treated humans like laboratory animals, while their governments remained ignorant of the threat. "All ships secure," Tony announced from the engineering station. "We now control 4 vessels, with a total of 29 human prisoners recovered." Jake made a decision that would change everything. Instead of trying to return to Earth, he was going to use the alien ships to hunt down every Kepler collective vessel in the sector. No more humans would be taken while he had the power to stop it. Commander Zix had been right about one thing. The humans were challenging forces they did not fully understand. But he had been wrong about the outcome. Sometimes primitive thinking was exactly what advanced civilizations could not offend against. The aliens had made war on humanity without realizing what they were starting. Now they were going to learn why humans had become the dominant predator on their own world. 3 months passed as Jake's human fleet moved through alien space hunting Kepler collective ships. What had started as an escape plan had become a full-scale military campaign against the slave trade network. The humans had captured 16 vessels and freed over 200 prisoners from dozens of worlds. Dr. Park had become the fleet's science officer, learning alien technology faster than anyone thought possible. She discovered that the Kepler Collective had detailed maps of Earth, showing military bases, population centers, and resource locations. The aliens had been planning a full-scale invasion after softening human defenses through years of kidnapping. Tony served as chief engineer for the growing fleet. He had trained other humans to operate alien ships and weapon systems. What surprised him most was how quickly people adapted to the advanced technology once they understood the basic principles. Helen had taken charge of intelligence operations. Her ability to predict alien behavior patterns made her invaluable for planning attacks. She discovered that the Kepler Collective was becoming desperate as ship after ship failed to report back to their central command. Sam ran communications and navigation for the fleet. He had broken alien encryption codes and could monitor their military communications across multiple star systems. The aliens were calling the human resistance a plague that threatened their entire civilization. Jake commanded the operation from the bridge of their largest captured vessel. He had been promoted to colonel by the unanimous vote of every human they had rescued. The title meant nothing officially, but it helped maintain military discipline among people from dozens of different backgrounds. The final battle came when they intercepted a Kepler Collective task force heading toward Earth. 12 alien ships, loaded with invasion troops and advanced weapons. Jake knew this was the force that would have conquered his home world if the slave trade had continued. "All ships report ready for combat," Tony announced from the engineering station. Jake looked at the tactical display showing the alien formation. They had superior numbers and firepower, but they were still following predictable patterns. 3 months of fighting humans had not taught them to adapt their tactics. Execute Attack Plan 7, Jake ordered. The human fleet split into 3 groups, approaching the aliens from different angles. This forced the enemy to divide their attention, while human ships used captured alien weapons against their makers. The battle lasted 6 hours and ended with every alien ship either destroyed or captured. Commander Zix sat in the brig of Jake's flagship, along with other high-ranking Kepler Collective officers. The alien who had once considered humans primitive animals now spent his time studying human military tactics, trying to understand how his advanced civilization had been defeated. Your species was supposed to be easily controlled, Commander, Zix said during one of Jake's visits. Our computer models showed humans would submit to superior technology and organization. Jake sat down across from his former captor. Your models were based on studying peaceful humans living normal lives. You never studied what happens when you threaten our families and friends. We underestimated your capacity for coordinated violence, the alien admitted. Most intelligent species develop beyond such primitive behaviors. Maybe that's why they get conquered, Jake replied. Sometimes primitive behaviors are exactly what you need to survive. The journey back to Earth took 2 months. Jake used the time to organize all the intelligence they had gathered about alien civilizations throughout the galaxy. The information would give humanity a massive advantage when they eventually made contact with other species. Dr. Park worked with the best human minds they had rescued to reverse engineer alien technology. By the time they reached Earth, she had blueprints for faster-than-light travel, energy weapons, and defensive systems that would protect the planet from future invasion attempts. When the human fleet appeared at the edge of the solar system, every government on Earth detected them simultaneously. The arrival of 16 advanced alien ships caused immediate panic until Sam broadcast Jake's mission report on all military frequencies. Jake found himself sitting in the United Nations headquarters 3 weeks later, briefing world leaders about humanity's first contact with hostile alien life. The reaction was exactly what he expected. Some wanted to hide and hoped the aliens would leave them alone. Others wanted to build defenses and prepare for war. The Kepler Collective will not return to Earth, Jake told the assembled diplomats and generals. We made sure their entire slave trade network knows that humans are off limits. But there are other species out there, and not all of them will be hostile. Dr. Park presented her technical findings to teams of scientists from every major nation. Within 6 months, the first human-built starships were under construction using alien technology as a foundation. Earth would never again be defenseless. Against threats from space, Tony established training programs that taught human engineers how to build and maintain advanced spacecraft. The mechanical skills that had helped him fix cars in Detroit now served to prepare humanity for life among the stars. Helen worked with diplomatic corps from multiple countries to develop first contact protocols for future meetings with alien civilizations. Her understanding of non-human psychology became the foundation for Earth's xenological studies programs. Sam headed the new Space Communications Command that monitored alien radio traffic throughout the galaxy. His ability to break encryption codes made him invaluable for gathering intelligence about potential threats or allies. Jake remained in military service, but his role changed completely. Instead of patrolling mountain bases, he now commanded Earth's first interstellar defense force. The farm boy from Kansas had become humanity's shield against the dangers of the galaxy. Commander Zix and his surviving crew members were given a choice. They could return to what remained of Kepler Collective territory with a message that Earth was under human protection, or they could remain as prisoners until they died of old age. Most chose to carry the message home. Commander Zix was among them. Before leaving, he made one final statement to Jake. "You have changed the balance of power in this region of space," the alien said. Other species will hear about what humans did to the Kepler Collective. Some will fear you, others will seek alliance. All will know that your species cannot be conquered. Jake nodded. That was the idea. 5 years later, human ships patrolled trade routes throughout local space. The galaxy had learned that Earth's children were explorers, defenders, and when necessary, warriors who would not accept defeat. The slave trade that had operated for centuries was gone. In its place were human rescue fleets that freed prisoners and protected weak species from stronger predators. The hunters had become the hunted, and the galaxy was safer because of it. Jake sometimes wondered what would have happened if Commander Zix had chosen a different human to kidnap that night in Afghanistan. Someone without military training or the will to fight back. But then he remembered that every human they had rescued had shown the same determination once they understood what was at stake. Maybe that was the real lesson the aliens had never learned. Humans were not special because of their technology or intelligence. They were dangerous because they refused to stay victims once they understood they had a choice.